We're here today, not just to talk about the future of this company. We're here to talk about its destiny. We're here to talk about the end of the world.
This is an ABC News special report.
On the brink of have no cure. Fundamentalist states who called for our destruction, nuclear powers over which we have. We stand on the brink of Armageddon, diseases for which we have no cure. Fundamentalist states who called for our destruction, nuclear powers over which we have no control. And even if we navigate these dangerous waters, we face other, even more inevitable threats. Global warming will melt the polar ice caps within 80 years, flooding 90% of all habitable areas on Earth. Unchecked population growth will overtake food production in less than 50 years, leading to famine and war. This is not conjecture. This is fact.
What do you think are the most serious issues faced by conservationists and World Wildlife Fund over the next 20 years or so? 95% of the whole of the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil has disappeared in the last 100 years. There is simply nowhere for these animals to live. At the basis of it all is this colossal increase in the human population. It's one of the living species of the planet, but it's reaching plague proportions.
One way or another, our world is coming to an end. Now the question is, will we end with it?
What do you propose?
I propose that we end the world, but on our terms. An orchestrated apocalypse. One that will cleanse the earth of its population but leave its infrastructure and resources intact. It's been done once before, with great success. The chosen few will ride out the storm, not in an ark as in the book of Genesis, but in safety, underground.
Which is where Kobe Bryant is, which is where George Floyd is, sipping on margaritas, laughing.
And when it's over, we will emerge onto a cleansed earth, one that we can then reboot in our image.
And just how do you intend to
reboot via the AI gods, the fallen angels, the entities in the computer?
achieve this?
The means of our salvation are already at hand. I give to you the T-Virus.
In the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. Whether this guy died a long time ago or whether he's still alive, this is all part of the script. His death is symbolic to move everything to the next phase. Now, let me get you to the key points of how concerning the ghost in the machine.
My middle son, James.
So he's going to be talking about how the computer is alive. And he also refers to it as, when he's next to it, being at the altar of an alien god. Of course, aliens are the fallen angels. That's what Trump's Space Force was about. Because we all know we live under the firmament. According to the word of God, the sun and moon are what are moving. The earth is God's footstool. That's why they don't allow you to go to Antarctica, because you're surrounded by the ice wall. That's what holds you in. But every time you go south, you run into Antarctica. And that's why there's no connecting flights from like Australia to South America, because they're really on opposite ends of the circle from each other. And that's why they all have connecting flights in the middle. So he's going to talk about his son, his son that has a stuffed animal. And he's like, well, I know you're scared to be in the dark and all with your kid, but you got Bear, you got your stuffed animal. He goes, but Bear's not alive. And that's why he tells that story.
Absolutely loves this little guy called Bear, which is the picture that I'm showing up here. Bear was a limited release Thai beanie baby, and there aren't very many of them that were made of his particular form. And one Christmas, I decided that it would be insurance policy to go and try to buy some more just in case something happened to Bear. So I went on the internet and did a search, and I was only able to locate 2 others that were for sale, and I bought both of them. So now he has 3 of these little guys. But the reason that it occurred to me that this might be a good place to start as a is 4, the oldest is
I got ahead of it. Now he's going to tell the story.
8. And they're very different.
His children.
But they share one thing in common. And the parents in the audience may, I suspect, have noticed the same thing. Each of my children has fixated on a particular stuffed animal as being their special friend or toy. And in particular, my middle son, James, absolutely loves this little guy called Bear, which is the picture that I'm showing up here. Bear was a limited release Thai beanie baby, and there aren't very many of them that were made of his particular form. Me that this might be a good place to start as a conversation that I had with him last week.
Here it goes.
He wanted to sleep with his older brother in his bedroom, and his older brother wouldn't let him. And he was very sad and despondent. He was like, I'm scared, I don't want to sleep by myself. And I said, well, you've got Bear. And he said to me, Bear isn't real. And so I found this very intensely distressing for a variety of reasons that maybe you'll understand when I go through this. And I assured him that Bear was as real as anything else in the world. And he said, but he can't speak and he can't move. And so I said, well, what you really mean is he's not alive.
And that's what he's going to tell you.
He said, yes, that's what I mean.
What he's going to tell you is that these quantum computers are alive.
To tell you a little bit about quantum computers and why people care so much about them. There are literally prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that
quantum computation will be the first technology that allows useful tasks to be performed in collaboration between parallel universes. Parallel universes is paranormal activity. In other words, they're telling you that there are other universes out there, and that this computer is able to connect to them. They are. And then in the next video, Elon Musk refers to them as aliens, and then they refer to them, Elon Musk, and he quotes Elon Musk referring to them as demons. So we'll get to that.
Is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed.
So he tries to, twist this into physics, science, math. But what he's really telling you is that there's entities out there that this computer is connecting to.
But different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to the set. point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps supposedly can do this wild stuff. Let's forget about how they work.
He said, let's forget about how they work. Let's just forget about how they're connecting to these parallel. Let's just forget about how they work.
If you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we build.
So it's not like any man-made computer because it's alive. This is the ghost in the machine. I call it the ghost in the machine because they told you about this in 1981 through an album by the Police titled Ghost in the Machine. When I first heard this guy talk, I immediately remembered the name of that album. In other words, this has been around way longer. See, he's acting like all this is new. Now, this is what writes the scripts. It writes presidential speeches. It tells every country what to do and when to do it. And they just are all following a script. I believe it writes most movies, songs, could even give them the music to go with the lyrics that it wrote. That's why there's so much predictive programming in TV shows, movies, songs. What this album, which I owned back in the 80s, what this album did is it cryptically, see how the Police is backwards now on the top of the album. When you flip the album backwards, it actually was 666. When you flip it backwards, that's what it made.
If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing.
Because man has to program those type of computers, and man doesn't have the capability of doing what these entities can do. See, people, what they've done, see, people used to channel spirits. Well, back in the old days, the fallen angels were present. That's what built your pyramids and so forth. They, it says in Genesis 6, verses 1 through 9, they created mighty men, men of renown, by having sex with human women, and, which is where all of your Greek gods and goddesses, your Roman gods, all of that came from. These hybrids, these fallen angel human hybrids. And Jesus said, so like it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. That's why these entities are going to upload into the human body and use the human body as an avatar. That's why they're connecting you to the technology through what they call nanotechnology, which is in the poke, and it's also in the technology. G500 is Strong's Concordance number for the Antichrist. Take off the zeros, you got G5. Now reverse it, and that's the name of the technology. That's why Trump signed the bill 5G and beyond, created it, signed it, whatever, you know, that was something he was extremely proud of, along with Space Force. Space equals aliens, which simply equals fallen angels, which simply equals the ghost in the machine, which simply equals the technology
that you could with this kind of machine.
You can with this kind of machine because it is not of man. So what they did was they told man once, see, man used to channel spirits. They used to use crystal balls, used to use all kind of things. They would channel, they would bring these entities into their realm. But once they taught man through all this channeling how to build even just a speaker electronically, then they could listen to them. And at that point, they could listen to them, tell them how to bring in this technology. Man didn't come up with this. Steve Jobs was a front man. He was a face. They gave you movies to make you think it all was organic by just people in a garage. No. No. That's the beauty of Hollywood. They're the showmen, they're the tricksters, they're the actors. Then you've got the politicians and the media that just read the scripts. And then once they taught man how to build the computer and how they could then get into these computers, then they were in the computer. And after that, you can just imagine. And what he's telling you is like it's new. This has been going on for decades, which is why the Police put out the album Ghost in the Machine. The Police were told what to name. They were just musicians, but they were part of the system.
So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities.
Yes. It's called the end times. It's called the mark of the beast.
It does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources. Maybe you could call them parallel universes in order to do something that you could.
Maybe you could call them parallel universes.
What we do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's a crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we?
That's all Google is. That's all YouTube is. People, who is your YouTube police? It's artificial intelligence. When they use words like algorithms, those are just fake little things that they make up. There are no such things as algorithms. Watch policing what you do on Facebook, policing what you do on YouTube. No. It's artificial intelligence that's doing it. It's the fallen angels in the technology that's doing it. And it's funny that they show you this in a lot of video games, that they have all of these entities in the computer. One was very deep that I watched, where it was a lady and she was talking about how we were placed into your technology and we've been watching you. It was just, yeah. And of course, what made those video games? Artificial intelligence did. So Google, NASA, what is NASA? It's Hollywood with a launching pad. That's why they curve right out and they go right into the ocean. When you see it, was like, oh, that's the curvature of the earth. That's why it looks like it's curving, yeah. Okay.
Build machines like us.
Can you build machines like us?
So building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is.
They've already done this and have been doing it, but he's presenting it like it's futuristic.
I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about, From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths.
Do you remember the monoliths in 2001: A Space Odyssey? Do you remember all the monoliths that they were somehow finding all over the earth recently in the news? Monoliths placed. See, in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, every time the monolith came along, man was taken to man then went to his next step of evolution. Of course, evolution is a theory. It's called the theory of evolution because it's fake. Just like the theory of gravity, it somehow holds the oceans down from spinning off of this fake spinning ball, and yet a butterfly can just fly, fly, fly. There's a lot of things that are super fake once you start doing real science. Not scientism and not pseudoscience.
Big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space.
Interstellar space. Because you've been there.
Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat.
Ooh, he's going to tell you that it's like it's alive. And then he refers to it when you're near one being like at the altar of an alien god.
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god.
There you go. There you go. Now let's move on when he went to a different company called Kindred, and think about kindred spirits, which are when you connect to the spirit world, they call it kindred spirits, familiar spirits.
Is build real AI.
So I didn't show it, but the company is called Kindred. You can see the title. It says Kindred AI. And his t-shirt has a snake eating its tail.
Heard about AI is not what we mean by AI. What we mean by AI is a software system that can do literally anything that a human can do. Literally anything. And obviously, computers are better at things than people. And
obviously, this AI will be better than people because, folks, the fallen angels, a human is no match for that world or a fallen angel. Hence, how the pyramids were built. They go back and they have on that TV show Ancient Aliens, which is nothing more than when the days of Noah were, when the fallen angel human hybrids were running about the earth, which is why the flood came. That's all in Genesis 6, and it's only 9 verses. You only have to read Genesis 6, verses 1 through 9, and it just tells you the whole story. And yes, of course, a human is no match for what they can do.
in lots of different ways. So now imagine, not only can they do everything that a human can do, but they can do everything that the best human at any task could do better than them. So imagine there was the mental Olympics of the 100-meter dash, and Usain Bolt is the fastest person. Now imagine that's some kind of a mental thing, like writing a novel or writing whatever. Imagine now that the thing is so much faster than Usain Bolt. Like, for example, it's a spaceship, yeah? It's still doing the same thing, but it's doing it so much better because we're limited, because we're people. So what Kindred is trying to do is solve this problem. How do you build machines that are better than people at everything?
Now, if you remember in the movie Iron Man, so as far as the fallen angels telling man how to create them, how to make them, remember Ozzy Osbourne had the I am Iron Man. This is all goes back to the final kingdom, the iron mixing with clay. Iron, the machine, and it says, will mingle themselves with the seed of man. And that's what happens at the mark of the beast time, when people will worship the image of the beast because he came back from the dead, the Antichrist. And but this is showing you how the AI, how the ghost in the machine is helping Tony Stark build his Iron Man suit. Or helps him throughout, whatever.
For you, sir, always.
I'd like to open a new project file, indexed as Mark II.
Shall I store this on the start?
So you hear the AI speaking to him. This is a parallel of what actually happened.
Sir, always.
I'd like to open a new project file, indexed as Mark II.
Shall I store this on the Stark Industries central database?
I just don't know who to trust right now. Till further notice, why don't we just keep everything on my private server?
Working on a secret project, are we, sir?
So
1974 Stark Expo model scan complete, sir.
So anyway, you get the idea. That's what they were showing you in that movie, is everything that I'm telling you now.
So what does this have to do with aliens? So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy.
Imagine we received a message from an alien civilization which read, people of Earth, we will arrive on your planet in 50 years. Get ready. And now we're just counting down the months until the mothership arrives. He's saying, can we build AI without losing control over it? Sam Harris. See, they're trying to blend two different things here. They're trying to blend that the AI would help you in this situation, when they're also going to tell you that these entities that are helping us, we're not going to be able to control them. So let's watch them blend, but let's listen to exactly what's being said.
Was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving.
Jesus spoke in parables, so of course he used the word parable.
And it goes something like this. So I am, say I'm the president of the United States. So I received this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. We're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us.
They're not going to be like, now he's no longer talking about the fictitious story of them sending an alien sending you a message that we're coming. Now he's telling you about what entity would help you in this situation. And he's saying these entities that would help us in this situation, they're not going to be like us.
So alien means, different.
They're just different. That's all. He's trying to calm. They're just different than us.
These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room.
Well, of course. I think I've already explained that, and you've made it abundantly clear, Mr. Working for Kindred, which think about kindred spirits, and you got the snake eating its tail as your logo. Don't get me started on what that T's for up there. Yeah, sure, they'll tell you it's for tech, but it's for the Antichrist, of course.
In ways that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about...
Now, this is Elon Musk. They're just telling you the truth because they have to sort of tell you the truth. So they're cryptically telling you the truth. So they're going to use a front man, Elon Musk, who's nothing but a front man, and as he pretends to build these, fake rocket ships and all that kind of stuff. And, they're just, it's all smoke and mirrors, but he's going to sit there and tell you what these entities are and warn you cryptically, even though they know there's nothing you can do about it.
About this is Elon, who says things like this, like,
with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know all those stories where there's a guy with a pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Doesn't work out. Said that in 2014.
When you do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening.
That doesn't even capture it. Are you kidding me?
Here. I don't know if any of you are turn of the century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author.
Now, what he's going to tell you is that through this fake thing called cosmic indifference, that these entities don't really want to mess with us or hurt us or bother us any more than we would an ant. And I'm sorry, but I've destroyed plenty of ant beds in my life, but that's just, it's another story for another day. But listen to how he tries to sell it like they don't really want to mess with us, these entities, which is what AI is. What he's telling you, it's what AI is. With AI, we're summoning the demon.
And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you, even in the slightest.
Let's go over what he said again. There's these entities out there, these demonic fallen angel entities that, yeah, they're way smarter than us, but they don't really want to hurt us or bother us. They don't give an S about us, he said, didn't he? Isn't he something?
The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. But they're not good, they're not evil.
They're not good or evil. Don't even bother what the Bible says. They're not good, they're not evil.
Basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you, even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil.
He sat there and told you that they're summoning them. And then he backtracks and goes, they're not demons. They're not evil.
But they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones.
They're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. Old ones. The days of Noah.
There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want.
These entities are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want.
So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate.
Are they showing you this on your Fox News or your CNN? No, they're not telling you anything, are they? As they divide and conquer you.
And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background.
Nobody's paying attention. Of course they're not.
While people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US, and underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
There he said it. Very good. They're sitting there telling you what AI is, that it's the ghost in the machine. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Love you.